Hello and welcome to Cordy Creativity. I'm Cordy and today we are drawing a sneaky snake. So let's get started. You're going to need a pencil, an eraser, some fine liners, a thin, medium and a thick one, and of course a sketchbook or a piece of paper. So grab your pencil and we're going to start sketching. The first bit is the tree that I want my snake to sit on, and because I want that snake to sort of be curled up, I'm gonna draw the tree first and then the snake on top of it to figure out how it's gonna sort of coil around. So I'm gonna do two branches, one that goes up, the other one that goes down, and just randomly give it some texture, draw some wavy lines to make it look like an organic object, and a couple of overlaps here. So I want the head to be up here and the tail close to the head there. So from there I have to figure out how the snake coils from tail to head. So I'm gonna choose to have that tail go down. I'm just going to draw it across the branch, and then from there I think it's good to have the tail in front of the branch and then come behind and then let the snake coil over to the right. Make sure here that the snake body becomes wider as it coils over to the right. So it coils over here, over that branch, and then out to the side and all the way up. So over, this is the other part of the body in front of the branch here. I'm going to get rid of the branch later. And then next it goes behind. So coming out across here, going behind that upper branch there. Coming over to the side. And then on top. That's the bit that goes towards the head, and it coils a little bit on top of that other bit. So once I erase the lines, you'll see how it flows. And with a snake body, it's really important to get that sort of heaviness and girth in, and also the flow of the body, so it's not too jerky. So the curves that the body is making are nice and smooth, but I think it looks okay. Let's keep going with the head. Just started out with a rough egg shape here, but I'm going to take that in a little bit, and this is underneath that line is where the eye kind of sits. I just looked at a couple of different pictures of snakes, and I just sort of picked the features that I think look the most snaky. So this is not a particular snake, it's just one that I like best. So underneath that ridge, we're going to draw the eye, and then moving forward towards sort of the, I guess you call it a snout, we're just going to draw two rectangles with little dots inside. That's kind of like the nose. And then from there, we'll take the mouth back towards the eye, let it lift up a bit. It's a sneaky snake, so it gets to have a bit of a grin. And then the chin, moving it back, maybe giving it a bit of texture. We're going to get into texture later, I promise. And then that connection here towards the nose is quite flat because it's sort of a 3/4 view. Now, having it all connected, let's get to the texture. Scales. We're going to draw scales. They're little half moon shapes right after each other, and we're going to cover the snake and the head with it. So we're going to start right there by the eye with small ones, just like little ridges all the way down. And then as we go back in the head, we just draw them a bit bigger so it's interesting to look at. And as you go, make sure that on the sides and the edges, you're also bringing out that texture. It's not just a line and then the little scales start, it's a texture. It's a little bit rounded. And at the very end of the head as well, you can see the line going through the scales, but it's just for guidance. We're going to get rid of that later. Now, on the face, the scales are sort of more like tiles. So we're just going to draw some rectangular and square shaped tiles down the jaw. Small ones and then bigger ones on top of the line of the mouth. I really love drawing texture. It's so much fun. It's a lot of work. This is where drawing becomes a bit of a meditation because you just keep drawing the same thing over and over. But it's fun. You can, listen to music or an audiobook or something and just keep on going. You'll see the rewards are plenty because it really does look cool getting all these tiny textures. And now on top of the eye, we're going to draw some tiles as well, squares and rectangles. And in that flat bit, because of the perspective, we're going to draw those shapes flat. So it's kind of like flat tiles on the head there. So our snake has two types of textures, those tiles and scales. And then on the bottom bit is more like lines. So here with this line, I'm going to show the border between the scaly bit and the line bit. Now let's do this for the rest of the body. So there's another line coming down. Above it, I'll draw some scales, and below I will draw the lines that show that this is the bottom of the snake. It's kind of like an enhancement of the 3D effect to show that the body also kind of twists around. So coming around here, I'm gonna do the scales on top because it's kind of like a side view. And then here as well, sort of cutting the tail end of the snake in half with half scales and half lines. You really have to pay attention and analyze the object that you want to draw. And that's one reason why I love drawing so much, because you notice really interesting details and how an object sort of seems three-dimensional on the page, and also what features and characteristics make, for example, a snake look like a snake. So I'm going to keep going with my scales here all the way down to the line I created, and then draw a line down towards the edge. So again, the scales towards the line and then the line down. I want to keep going like this and fill my entire snake with those scales and lines, and always make sure that the edge also has a texture. It's not just the line, but the scales sort of coming out and over, and a line, and again. So this is the first bit of it. Now below, it is facing towards us. The bottom bit of the snake is facing towards us. So it's all lines coming across. And they spread out a bit more on the bend and crinkle together on the side. Oops, I went over the line. Okay, that's where the scales go. Here we go. And they're a bit smaller there and getting bigger as we come around. Again, at the edge of the body, making sure the scale kind of sticks out, so it's not just a line, but the edge is also a texture. So all along, scales and lines. Zooming in here just to show you again that the shape of the scales is defining the outside edge. So it's not a line anymore, it's sort of a wavy line now, because there's scale after scale after scale after scale. And at the bottom, the lines are coming around, curving a little to show the shape. Now I went a little bit ahead, so you don't have to watch me for the entire process because it's literally always the same. Just notice here that the scales that are closest to us and the body part that's closest to us, they're much bigger than the ones behind. And at the same time, the scales near the tail and near the head are also, in comparison to the middle of the body, much, much smaller. Now let's grab our medium size fine liner. Mine is a 0.3. We're going to start at the head, getting in all those major lines that we started drawing and the outlines. So it's the ridges around the eye and the mouth, and then everything, all the outlines. And of course, we're going to color in the eye in black so it really jumps out. And then at the sort of neck area, we're going to also use our 0.3. Now we're going to use the 0.05, the really small one, for the tiles around the face. We just want to create sort of a difference in line between the major lines that define the face and the texture there. I'm sure you can see it already. There is a difference. We want to have those lines that define the mouth and the ridges and kind of the nose there. They want to be a bit more pronounced. So with your medium fine liner at the 0.3, just go around the rest of our image, all the scales, all the outlines. And then at the very end, 0.8, the thickest one you have, just for the outlines, and especially those overlapping lines right here. Just making sure that it's really visible to the eye, that there's a line separating the front bit and the back bit. I think you can see what I mean. So, last but not least, eraser. Get rid of all the pencil lines very carefully. Now you can really see the difference of the three different fine liners, the very thin one in the face and the medium one for the branch and the scales, and then the really thick one for the lines that need to just jump at you a little bit more. So I hope you enjoyed drawing this with me. This is where I usually leave you with it. I want you to this to be your very own coloring in sheet, so you can go absolutely nuts with color. I used watercolor for mine, so let me just show you real quick how I layered it up. I used purple, blue, green, and yellow, just some light washes. That's what they look like on the paper, just really light. And to start out with, I used the yellow for the highlighted area that I wanted to jump out a little bit. Then I went on top of it with the green, and down for those lines at the bottom of the snake, I just added a little of like a turquoisey wash, just always on one side of the stripe to create a little bit of a dimension here. And then for another layer, I went in with a darker blue to paint in the shadows. And then I gave this another layer, so the dark comes out even more. There's even a bigger difference between the darker and the light colors. And to go into even more detail, I went into each and every scale, and the bit that is overlapping, I just gave it a little dab of extra color to make it look darker. And I did this all around the snake here, and even the tiny little scales. It makes for a really cool effect. And then last but not least, I grabbed my white paint and just dabbed in a couple of highlights on the tippy tops of the scale. And obviously the branch also got a little bit of color, but I kept that nice and even so it doesn't take away from the great detail of the snake, so the eye stays focused on all those little scales and interesting color combinations. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and you'll go ahead and try and draw it yourself. For some more easy beginner drawing tutorials, hop on over to my channel, Cordy Creativity, and subscribe. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I hope I get to draw again with you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.